Today we're talking about a truly unique fighter jet, the SAAB Gripen. And what makes it so interesting is where it comes from. See, this jet wasn't born from a global superpower with a bottomless budget, but from a small country that had a very big problem on its hands.
So, to really get the Gripen, you've got to rewind the clock to the Cold War. You have Sweden, officially neutral, but sitting right next door to the Soviet bloc. And they had this massive strategic challenge. How on earth do you stop a potential invasion from your gigantic neighbor without going bankrupt and without any formal allies to call for help?
That reality right there, it forced them to think completely differently. They knew they couldn't build the biggest or the fastest jet. They had to be smarter. They had to focus on things like efficiency, resilience, and finding some kind of asymmetric advantage. They needed a fighter that could really punch above its weight.
And the answer to that puzzle, well, it was the JS-39 Gripen. And really, its whole reason for being is baked right into its name.
Right from the get-go, the Gripen was designed to be a swing-roll aircraft. It wasn't just a fighter. It could do air-to-air combat, switch to ground attack, and then perform reconnaissance, sometimes all in the very same mission. This made every single plane they built incredibly flexible and valuable.
And this wasn't just some idea on a whiteboard. They built this philosophy right into the jet itself. The Gripen was made for a world where your main air bases get flattened in the first 5 minutes of a war. It can land on a reinforced stretch of highway, get refueled and rearmed by a tiny crew, and be back in the air in just 10 minutes. Being able to scatter your forces and fight from anywhere, that's its superpower.
Oh, and then there's the price tag. In a world of eye-wateringly expensive fighter jets, a 2012 study found the Gripen's cost per flight hour was just $4,700. At the time, that was the lowest of any modern fighter out there. That makes it a choice an Air Force can actually afford to fly and train with.
Okay, but that was the original Gripen. The story doesn't end there, not even close. The jet has evolved into something way more powerful, the Gripen E. And while it might look kind of similar, think of it like the difference between the original F-18 Hornet and the much bigger Super Hornet. It's basically a brand new aircraft.
So let's break this down. The Gripen E is just more, in every way that counts. It's got over 20% more thrust, which lets it supercruise, fly supersonic without guzzling fuel in an afterburner. It carries 40% more gas internally, which is a huge boost to its range. And with 2 extra spots to hang weapons, it packs a much bigger punch.
But look, a bigger engine and more fuel, that's evolution. The revolution with the Gripen E is in its brain. The whole idea shifted to outthinking your opponent, not just outflying them.
You know, for decades, the goal for modern fighters has been stealth, being invisible to radar. But SAAB took a different path. They focused on electronic warfare. The idea isn't just to hide, it's to dominate the entire electromagnetic spectrum, to give your pilot a crystal-clear picture of the battle while completely scrambling the enemies.
So how does it do that? Well, first, they ripped out the old mechanical radar and replaced it with a cutting-edge AESA radar that can track a ton of targets across a huge field of view. But here's the really sneaky part. They added a passive sensor, an IRST. It's basically a super powerful heat-seeking camera. It can find the heat from an enemy's engine without ever sending out a single radar wave, meaning it can find you without you ever knowing it's there.
Now, this is where it gets into some real spy movie level stuff. The Gripen's electronic warfare suite isn't just about jamming. I mean, it can do that, just blast out electronic noise to blind an enemy, but it can do something way smarter. It can actually create virtual decoys, making the enemy's radar see a bunch of planes that don't exist, totally messing up their ability to get a lock.
You know, one of the SAAB engineers put it perfectly. He said, "This tech lets the pilot achieve the unexpected. It turns deception itself into a weapon."
So what happens when you put all of this together? You get this affordable, tough, high-tech jet that has become a surprisingly big player on the world stage.
Yeah, this isn't just a Swedish jet anymore. The Gripen is being flown by air forces all over the world. We're talking NATO members in Europe like the Czech Republic and Hungary, a major power like Brazil and South America, plus nations in Africa and Asia. It's a truly global fighter.
And that brings us right up to today, and the situation in Ukraine, which has shown a ton of interest in getting these jets. And when you look at the list, you can see why. It's almost the perfect plane for their problem. It was literally designed to counter Russian systems. It's built to operate from damaged, scattered airfields, and it does all this without costing a fortune. It's like the exact tool they need for this specific job.
And all of this leaves you with one big question. The story of the Gripen really challenges what we think about air power.
It's this incredible reminder that in the battle for the skies, maybe the smartest fighter wins, not just the strongest or the most expensive.